What's up, everybody? We've had enough roster moves made today by the Chiefs that I felt like it was worth kind of going live, doing a bit of a breaking news update video here on the YouTube channel. None of these moves are insane, extremely unexpected. There's a couple players they added that it's like, oh, okay, I didn't necessarily see that happening. It's not horrible. It's not awesome. It's just you need players. So let's get into all the roster moves that the Chiefs made today, and a lot of it stems from just injuries from around the league. So let me share my screen and we'll just kind of go into it line by line. The Chiefs made an announcement today on their Twitter that they've basically made a bunch of roster moves, and we'll just kind of go through it. I'll start at the bottom, actually. The Cleveland Browns, they signed Bailey Zappi to their active roster from the Chiefs practice squad. So Bailey Zappi got poached. All right. So that's your third quarterback if you're the Chiefs, right? Patrick Mahomes, Carson Wentz, who was in the game for one snap last week, handing the ball off to Kareem Hunt. Okay, great. But you need a third quarterback in case of injuries. And so once Bailey Zappi got removed from the Chiefs practice squad, they actually signed a very familiar face, quarterback Chris Oladokun, who I believe was just a free agent after he didn't make the roster after cutdowns. So you've now added Chris Oladokun to the practice squad. And then something else they did to the active roster is they placed cornerback Jaylen Watson on injured reserve. He broke his fibula and his tibia near his ankle. He's needing surgery. We're going to confirm how serious this is with further testing, but I did message Dr. Jesse Morse of injury experts and said, hey, this is somewhat similar to Isaiah Pacheco's injury, because Isaiah Pacheco broke one of those bones, I believe, near his ankle. And I said, is this worse? And Dr. Jesse Morse said, yes, it is worse. I was like, great. So Jaylen Watson, who has been the Chiefs cornerback 2 all season long, has been playing out of his mind, honestly. He's been playing at an elite, not elite level, but a very quality, above average level, one of the better tandems with him and Trent McDuffie in the NFL. Just if you're looking at a variety of metrics from separation allowed and man coverage and some other stuff, like Jaylen Watson was doing very well. He broke his ankle fourth quarter in the game that the Chiefs just won on Sunday. He was seen afterwards on crutches and a boot. Andy Reid said, don't expect good news. And it's bad news. Jaylen Watson currently has an outside chance of returning for a late postseason run. He's definitely done for the season, the regular season. But if the Chiefs make it back to the Super Bowl, deep playoff run, late January, early February, he has an outside shot to return. Basically, Jaylen Watson is done for the season. Isaiah Pacheco can come back semi-soonish. We'll see when, sometime in November. I think defensive end Charles Omenihu is going to come back as well. Maybe late November, early December. That's best guess from me, but he tore his ACL in the AFC Championship game last year. Isaiah Pacheco just had surgery in September on his ankle. We have players returning, right? But I'm not even done with all the news here, because something else they did with the practice squad is they elevated Keith Taylor to the active roster from the practice squad. And if you go to ESPN and just look at the Chiefs depth chart here, what you've kind of got going on with Jaylen Watson on IR is you've got Najee kind of stepping up into that role opposite Trent McDuffie. Joshua Williams could work in a little bit as well. We'll see. But then you've got Keith Taylor there, and then you've got Chamari Connor and Christian Roland Wallace, who have been playing in the slot, working in the slot. So these guys are kind of Swiss Army knives. You can move them around even more if you need to. But with them activating or elevating, it's activating Keith Taylor from the practice squad to an active roster contract. That left one more spot open on the practice squad. And what they did is they brought back a familiar face in wide receiver Cornell Powell. He's a guy that got drafted in the 5th round a few years ago. Practice squad extraordinary. He's running stuff with the scout team all the time. He somewhat surprisingly, didn't make the practice squad after cutdowns at the conclusion of preseason. Instead, it was Montrell Washington, Nico Remigio, and Justin Ross. Cornell Powell, because of the injuries to the wide receiver room, has also been added. So TLDR, they added 2 to the practice squad today, and that was Chris Oladokun and Cornell Powell. because two spots freed up on the practice squad today, and that's because they signed Keith Taylor to the active roster, and then Bailey Zappi got poached from the Browns. The Browns are going through a ton of issues right now in their quarterback room. Most of you probably know, but Deshaun Watson tore his Achilles, and then their backup quarterback, Dorian Thompson, I believe, he injured something, his hand or something like that. I can't remember what his injury was, but he was the backup quarterback, and he got injured in that game. So now it's Jameis Winston as a starter for Cleveland, and they need quarterback help pretty badly. So you had those two spots open. You then signed Chris Oladokun back, familiar with the system. He's been here for a couple of years. Cornell Powell, again, familiar with the system. And I do believe that's a little telling just with Juju Smith-Schuster and his issue. He's not on IR. He could miss a couple of weeks. Like, if you look at hamstring injuries across the league, you look like last night at Mike Evans. He came into the game with a hamstring injury, further re-aggravated it. He's expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks now. Look at Nico Collins with the Texans weeks back. He came into a game with a hamstring injury, right? Then he scored that big touchdown bomb from CJ Stroud. He further aggravated his hamstring and needed to go on IR. Juju Smith-Schuster came into the game with a hamstring injury, fell down on a route, further aggravated it, and we'll see how much time he's going to miss. But Andy Reid yesterday, today's Tuesday the 22nd, so Monday the 21st, Andy Reid said, hey, 2 people are already ruled out for this game. It's going to be Jaylen Watson and Juju Smith-Schuster. Well, Jaylen Watson was a given. He broke 2 bones near his ankle, and he's going to need surgery. Like, okay. But to already rule out Juju Smith-Schuster on Monday says to me his hamstring injury definitely re-aggravated, and it's a bigger deal than ideal. So is he going to be on IR? I don't know. He's probably going to miss a couple of games, though. So you're very thin in the wide receiver room. You add Cornell Powell just for depth purposes. I don't think Cornell Powell is the guy elevated this week. If the Chiefs add a wide receiver to the roster, I'm not talking about a trade. That's a whole nother conversation. Cooper Kupp's being floated around as a potential trade candidate to Kansas City Chiefs. That's a whole different conversation. That's for another day. But I don't think Cornell Powell would be the guy to get the call up or to get signed to the active roster. It's probably going to be Montrell Washington, Justin Ross, or Nico Remigio. I don't know that any of them get moved to the active right now. The Chiefs are full, okay? But they could get elevated. We might see some Justin Ross this Sunday against the Raiders. Maybe Nico Remigio. It just kind of depends. But right now, as the wide receiver room stands with no Juju, you have Xavier Worthy, you have Justin Watson, McCole Hardman, and Sky Moore. And Sky Moore, hasn't done anything this season. Literally, from a statistical perspective, he's had 2 or 3 targets, 0 catches, 0 yards. Not a joke, and I'm not trolling. Wanye Morris and Patrick Mahomes both have more receiving yards than Sky Moore. Mahomes has 1 or 2 yards from catching his own pass that got batted up into the air, I believe it was. And then Wanye Morris scored a big boy touchdown a few weeks ago. So, yeah, there's a lot of moves that were made. None of these are insane, but injuries are a sad part of what's going on. It sucks for Jaylen Watson. He's on IR. Hollywood Brown, IR. He could return for the playoff run in January. We'll see. Who else is on IR? Rashee Rice. He's on IR and probably out for he's definitely out for the season. He needs 4 to 6 months with that LCL repair. There's a lot of abbreviations in the knee. It wasn't MCL. I think it was LCL. PCL, PLC, TLC, tender loving care. One of those abbreviations. But yeah, there's a lot going on, man. The Chiefs have been able to stay pretty healthy year in and year out. I said that was an underrated part of the Chiefs' success all these years is they get to the playoffs and they're pretty freaking healthy, where you play the Dolphins last year and they had a makeshift O-line with Justin Houston and somebody else that I can't remember that was 35 years old. Well, the Chiefs are definitely getting hit by the injury bug this year, which is rather unfortunate, looking at all the guys placed on IR. Again, the good news is Amenahu's going to return. Pacheco's going to return. You've got good news on the horizon. Unfortunate news in the wide receiver room in particular, depending on Juju. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. Flurry of roster moves made. I think Brett Veach makes a move for a wide receiver. Oscar with the 5 said, do you think they should go after Chris Olave? Of the Saints? Yeah, I mean, if you want to look at any team that's tanking, that's not doing well, and especially an NFC team Like the Saints have lost 5 games straight. I don't know how realistic that is. Chris Olave is not a guy I've looked into as far as like, I know he's on his rookie deal, but what that would cost. But you know he's productive and you know what you would get out of him. Maybe I'll talk about him and potentially Cooper Kupp and some other options that are being like floated around in tomorrow's video. Thank you so much for the 5. But yeah, I mean, if you are Brett Veach and you're looking at the wide receiver room, like McCole Hardman, he's a free agent after this year. Justin Watson, free agent after this year. Who else? Sky Moore, you're probably not keeping around for next year. Juju, 1-year deal, right? You have Worthy and Rice long-term. Rice is going to miss the rest of this year with injury and then start out next year most likely suspended. We'll see. But if you want to go get a guy on a rookie contract, I don't know why the Saints would be willing to part ways with Olave. They're in cap hell right now. You could make the argument, hey, they need draft picks. But like, if you're in cap hell right now, you're the New Orleans Saints, you probably want to keep your rookies. You probably want to keep your guys that are on a little bit cheaper of a deal. But again, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what Brett Veach does. I do think he's making phone calls. For sure. Hannah with the 2. Biggest hurdle for KC's three-peat is the ability to be healthy. Yeah, I mean, 100%. Every year, they've been almost fully healthy, running like these deep playoff runs. Yeah, like they lost to Minihue last year, but that was at the AFC Championship game. They're now losing all these guys. It's not even, what are we heading into? Week 8, Alex? It's not even halfway through the football season, and they are down multiple key players, key starters, weapons, and they've done a good job, obviously, adapting, pivoting. The offense is weird, but it's effective. Like, they're moving the ball. They put up 4 touchdowns last week against the 49ers, who are a pretty good defense. Like, they are not the same offense that we are used to. Mahomes has more INTs and touchdowns, but they're still effective. They're adapting. They're rolling with the punches. They're a little bit more run heavy right now with Kareem Hunt. And if it's working, do it. Multiple tight end sets because of the wide receiver room being banged up. You got Kelsey. You've got Noah Gray, who had a career game last week. You've got Jared Wiley, hasn't done much, but you signed Jody Fortson as well. Mr. Dykers with a 2. What do you think of Cortland Sutton? I just don't think the Broncos are going to get rid of him and trade him within the division, but I do like Cortland Sutton. Yeah, Tua's returning. Yep. Apparently the Rams are looking to trade Stafford to the Vikings. I don't know. I haven't heard that, but dude, it might be. Why would the Vikings want Stafford right now? They're doing well with Darnold. Anyway, that's kind of what's going on. You guys got to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, just with all the moves that have happened. I am going to do a long-form video tomorrow, so I'll dive into all these moves quickly in tomorrow's video. I think Mahomes and Andy Reid are speaking to the media tomorrow as well. We'll have an injury report, the first injury report coming out for this week. They are playing the Raiders, so we'll talk about that. They are really banged up. They don't have Adams anymore. He's with the Jets, obviously. They don't have Aiden O'Connell. He broke his thumb. He's on IR. Gardner Minshew is now back at the starting spot. Tony Timmons. What are our chances of getting Darius Slayton? Love this show. Thank you, Tony. Yeah, I talked about him in a recent video. He is definitely an option, and one that is somewhat realistic with the Giants just playing as bad as they are. He's going to be a free agent next year as well. So he is certainly an option. What are the chances? I don't know, because it takes 2 to tango. Brett Veach can call and be like, hey, you want to trade Darius Slayton? The Giants are like, yeah, but we want this. And Brett Veach is like, dude, I'm not going to give up a whatever. Just hypothetical talk. I'm not going to give up the Titans' 3rd for Darius Slayton. How about a 5th? You know, like it takes 2 to tango, so we'll see about that. Vikings and trade talks with Matt Stafford. Yeah, you're the second guy to say that. Is this like new news? It must have been brought up or something before I went live. Or I just missed it in general. But yeah, we'll see. I did see that the Rams are supposed to bring back Puka Nacua. Well, they opened up his 21-day window to return from IR. I did talk a little bit about Cooper Kupp earlier. I don't think you give up a second for Cooper Kupp. They want a second. If Devontae Adams, I'm giving away some of my video tomorrow, but if Devontae Adams couldn't get traded for a second-round pick, like it's a conditional second, it's a 3rd, could turn into a 2nd if he's 1st or 2nd All-Pro or on the active roster for the AFC Championship or the Super Bowl. But Devontae Adams played 17 games in 2022. He played 17 games in 2023, and he only missed 2 or 3 games this year with what I'm calling a fake hamstring injury until he was suddenly all good to go now once he got traded to the Jets. Cooper Kupp has missed 16 games. since 2022. That's a full season, basically, if you combine it all together. And that's including 4 games missed this year. He's 31 years old. Do I think he would be great on the Chiefs working out of the slot? Hell yeah, dude. I mean, I'm for a Kupp trade potentially, but not for a second. I think it's a little bit too much, too costly. If you can't get Devontae Adams for a second, I don't know why Cooper Kupp would go for a second when he's played literally half the games that Devontae Adams has played, and they're a similar age. So that's kind of where I stand on that at this point in time. Yeah, Hannah just said it with the 5. My biggest issues with Kupp is he's injury prone. He missed 16. Yeah, I just said that. Yeah, no, we're in the same mindset, same vein, Hannah. I like your thoughts. I mean, again, people hear me say that and they're like, oh, you want Sky Moore to catch pass? No, Cooper Kupp is more than welcome to come to Kansas City. But maybe how about for the Snead third that you got from the Titans, which is almost a second. I feel like a second for Kupp is a bit rich. That's just my opinion. Yeah, Richie James. I mean, there's a few options. DeAndre Hopkins is an option as well, but he is reportedly dealing with soreness in his calf/Achilles area, and that scares the hell out of me. Chiefs would do their due diligence though, so could be an option. But there you go. I'm gonna go live for a Tuesday night Q&A, so I'm not gonna stay on here too much longer because I'll be live at about 8:15 p.m. tonight if you want to hang out and we could talk about all this. But there was enough roster moves going on that I wanted to do a breaking update real quick for you guys. I wasn't going to do a long form video today. So there you go. There's the moves. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Thanks everybody hanging out. Mods holding it down for the super chats and dono bombs before I got out of here. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go.